Hey, what's up guys? Jake with Legacy 4x4 here again, and today we're going to be doing the cooling for my 1950s Willys pickup truck. Alright, so for today, I'm trying to get the Willys finished as quick as I can because I have that new boat that is sitting outside. The motor is not running properly, and so I'm trying to get the boat inside the shop so I can pull the heads and start diagnosing that motor. I would rather not do it outside, especially if I do have to take the heads off for an extended period of time. I would rather it was inside the shop. So we're going to try to rush through finishing this Willys as quickly as I can for the next few weeks. It's almost done. I've just got a few of the auxiliary things left to do, and one of those things is the cooling system. So we're going to run the cooling lines from the back rear mounted radiator in the Willys, and we're going to run them all the way forward to the front of the truck and plumb them into the existing motor of the truck. Alright, so as you guys might remember, the motor and the drivetrain that came in this truck came out of a 1986 F-150 that was in an accident, and the body and the steering of the truck was completely ruined, but the motor was in working running condition when the truck was parked, but then it sat for about 3 years. So I don't really know the condition of the motor. The carburetor's been taken off and the starter was taken off and a few other small pieces were removed. Those are easy to replace, and I might go to fuel injection anyways on this thing, so I haven't really decided yet on that. But the first thing we got to do today is I'm going to see if the motor is in good condition now, or if I'm going to have to do some repair work to it before I can plumb everything up. So the first thing we're going to do is pull a couple spark plugs, and we're going to test the motor to see if it rotates freely or not. Let's go and get started on that. Alright, so good news, the motor actually spun perfectly freely. I was a little hesitant about it, but I did know it was in running condition. The motor spins, there's no sign of oil or anything else within the heads that I can see from the outside, so I think it's going to be a good candidate to just get the extra parts bolted up to it and then immediately start and run. We'll obviously have to do some more work in advance of that, drain the oil, all that kind of fun stuff, but that's not the focus of this video. Today we're just doing cooling. So to run the cooling pipes along the length of the truck, I'm going to just use some 1.5-inch exhaust tube. This is stainless steel exhaust tube. It's got a little bit of rust on it because it was sitting outside for a little bit, but we'll clean it up and put it on, and that's going to be used to run the hard lines along the length of the truck. From the radiator to those lines, and then from those lines to the motor, some flexible stainless coolant tubes I picked up on Amazon that has the fittings for it, and this is just a simple type of tube. It'll work just fine for this. There's going to be 2 on the back running in the lines, and then 2 on the front running from the lines to the motor. With that said, let's start by getting the hard lines, the tubes, underneath the truck and bolted into place. Alright, so I was actually able to finish that a lot quicker than I thought I was going to, but don't worry, this is not going to be the end of this video. We got a little more, some random little small projects I'll tie into this as well that we're going to spend the rest of the day on. But let me go and show you guys what this looks like all installed. I did have to do some weird stuff with it, not going to lie. I was like 6 inches short from the rear, coming from the radiator down to where it was going to tie into it underneath the frame. And so I used a 1.5-inch fuel line, which should be perfectly fine for this. It's rated for this kind of temperature and this kind of pressure, so it should be no issues whatsoever, but I did use a little splice of that on both sides of it to get it to fit. Anyways, let me go and show you guys what this looks like, and then we'll move on to the next project. So starting back here in the rear, you can see how it comes from the top of the radiator here and the bottom of the radiator there. This is the only one that I actually used the cover on. It's the only one that fit properly, and it's the most visible, so I'm just going to leave it on there. The other ones and all the other joints on this are just the raw rubber with hose clamps on it. I'm not worried about the appearance of this too much. You can obviously see the radiator here. This is going to be the hot line, so hot water pushes up to the top of the radiator, works its way down through the radiator, and then pushes cold water from the bottom down along the frame. You can see one of the lines in here. You can see where it connects underneath and then runs along the inside of the truck, running next to the motor and the transfer case and the transmission. There's enough space in there that allow any flex in this, and it keeps it nice and tight and out of the way, away from any ground obstacles. Coming up to the front, you can see the left here. This is going to be the hot water coming out of the motor, goes up, down, and then down there to the back of the radiator. And then on this side, a little bit lower, because the inlet's down on the bottom, you can see the cold water coming from there, running to the water pump, and then into the motor from there. Pretty straightforward. It looks a little weird, I know, but it'll work. I am gonna have to run that exhaust on the driver's side over to the passenger side and then out the back to keep it away from that water line, but easy enough. So now I'm gonna knock out another easy project. I'm gonna final weld some of the parts at the front of the truck that were just tacked into place for the time being, and I'm going to install the shocks. These shocks are off of Matt's 97 Dodge before he did all the modifications to it, so I'm gonna make them fit where they fit on the side of my truck. Anyways, let's go and get up to that. That's what this looks like right here. As you guys can see, pretty simple. I thought I had the bolts to install the shock, but I do not have long enough bolts to actually install the shocks. So I'm gonna have to go get more bolts, and I don't feel like leaving the house today, so you'll just see them on the truck at a different time. But you can see it's just a simple bracket. These brackets are from Barnes four-wheel drive. They're not too expensive, and they're bent perfectly, and they work really well for these shocks, or for any shocks for that matter. So one of those on the top, one of those on the bottom, and I just did one piece of DOM from the frame to the top of this portion of the roll cage here. I know that you're not supposed to dead a tube into another piece of tube like what it's shown here. There will be more cross support going throughout the top of this that should provide enough adequate support to this. Really, this is just to hold the shock in place. I'm just using DOM to kind of keep the look all the same. Anyways, now we're gonna move on to the front and we're gonna install the winch mount. I'm just going through small parts that I have on the shelf that have been waiting to be installed. Now I can plan where to put the winch around the steering box, so that's gonna be the next little project. Okay, so here's this all finished up. As you guys can see, all we did for it, pretty simple. Use some more 2x2 by 3/16 inch box tube. I used one 36-inch length of it at the very front of the truck, and then two 11-inch lengths of it connecting between these two different crossbars, making kind of a ladder system. I then took this plate, which is from Barnes four-wheel drive, and I put it on top of that. These vertical supports, call them, get just a 1/4 of an inch along the inside of that, so there's still plenty of room to run the bolts through, and then it's a full length weld all the way around the entire thing on both sides, the whole way through it, and then all these different bars are all fully welded as well. So this should be more than sturdy enough to hold up a winch that's strong enough to lift this Jeep out of whatever it might get into. So pretty simple little project, as you guys saw there. But anyways, I do buy a lot of stuff from Barnes four-wheel drive. This is another example of that. I'm not affiliated with them in any ways, but if you are looking for quality off-road parts, I definitely recommend them. They do a phenomenal job, and all their parts are perfect every single time. But anyways, that's what this looks like. Alright guys, this is going to have to be the end of the day today. I am out of time, and I'm out of welding gas. I've got a few more small things I got to do. I'll just kind of putz around on when I have time. But coming up next, we are going to have the steering for this truck. I've got it mostly mocked up, as you guys saw here. I got the steering box in place, the tie rods in place, and the steering columns in place. I'm just waiting on the U-joints to come in the mail, and as soon as those show up, then we'll knock out the steering video, and we'll knock out another key system on this truck. Shortly after that, we're going to run through fuel and electricity, and we'll actually go through, putting coolant in the system and all that other kind of stuff that has to happen later on. But that's the end of this video, guys. I hope you like it. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.